Parshas Vayelech. This week's Parsha is getting close to the end of Moshe's life and to the end of the Torah. And Moshe is relating some of the safeguards that Hashem the Almighty is presenting to the children of Israel, to the Bnei Israel, so that they will stay the course. And he anticipates that it's going to be a challenge for them. In Perek Lamed Aleph, starting in Gedalad, which is 31:14, Moshe is saying, Hashem said to Moshe, Hein korvu yamecha lamus. Your days, it's getting close for you, the time of your death. And so now let's prepare the transition. So he says, Kra es Yoshua. Call Yoshua, v'syatzvu bo el moed vatzavenu. And place him over here at the tent of the meeting, and I will charge him with his responsibilities. So Moshe did that. And Hashem goes on, he says, there are going to be troubles ahead. Now Moshe already experienced this as a leader, but he's about to fade from the scene, and now Yoshua is going to take over. And Hashem says to them that the day will come, they're going to go into the land, and they will abandon me, says God. In all likelihood, it may be with certainty. And I will be angry with them, and I will leave them, and I will hide my face. This period where we don't see the revelation of God in supernatural ways is called Hester Panim. God is hiding his face. And they'll run into lots of troubles, and they will say, you know what, this is because God is not among us. And I'm going to hide my face because of all the bad that they will have done, because they turned to false gods. Here's the verse I'd like to focus on. This is Pasuk Yotes, verse 19. Va'ata, and now, kisvu lachem es hashira hazos. Write for yourselves this song. What song is that? We will talk about it. V'lamda es bnei Yisrael, and teach it to the children of Israel. Sima b'fihem. Place it in their mouths. What does that mean? Lama'an tihiyeh li hashira hazos la'ed b'nei Yisrael. So that this song will be a witness, a testimony to the children of Israel. This is a very cryptic verse. Write the song, stick it in their mouths, said it should be a witness. What is going on? Okay, so let's unpack this. First of all, what is this song? So Rashi says this song is Ha'azinu Hashemayim. That's not this parsha, that's the next parsha. Ha'azinu Hashemayim ad v'chiper ad mosa admo. That's Parshas Hazinu. Why does Rashi say it's Parshas Hazinu? We don't know, except for the fact that Parshas Hazinu is literally written in a different way. It's written like verse, like a poem or a song. There's a lot of white space, it's line by line, and these are required, and that's the way it shows up in the Sefer Torah as well. So Rashi, Ramban says, the Medrash says it's talking about Parshas Hazinu. The Rambam, on the other hand, based on a Gemara in Sanhedrin, he says that it means the entire Sefer Torah. As a matter of fact, he says that kisvu lachem es hashira hazos, or those who say kisvu, you shall, that's plural, like y'all should write this, that it's referring to Moshe and Yehoshua, because Moshe passes away several verses before the end of the Torah, and there's some discussion about whether Moshe writes it in anticipation or whether Yehoshua completes those verses. So according to one opinion, the you plural refers to Moshe and Yehoshua. According to the Rambam, there's an obligation on every Jewish man to write his own Sefer Torah. And the Gemara says, even if afilu hinichalo avosav, even if his fathers left it, it's not just to own it, but it's to write it. Now, what's going on? And why is it a song? So we said, according to Rashi, it's a song because if you're saying it's Hazinu, and Hazinu is structured on the parchment in verse, so that's understandable. But why otherwise would it be considered to be a song? Well, a song is something that you learn by heart. A song is something that you carry with you. A song is something that when a thought triggers an association, then you start singing, either out loud or at least in your mind. So it could be that the notion here is that this should be as practiced within your being as a song is. And that would explain this notion of sima b'fiem. Place it in their mouths. It does not mean take the scroll and stick it in their mouths. It means teach it to them over and over again, so that, as the commentaries explain, it will be available in the mouths of all the Jews. implicit in this is that there is an obligation to master the Torah and to carry it with us, so that it will be a testimony. What does it mean it will be a testimony? Because if people act inappropriately, if the Bnei Yisrael act inappropriately, and they suffer punishment as a result because they feel they have distanced God, and they announce it, they say, these sorrows, these troubles have come to me because God is not within us. We've chased him away. This Torah will be a testimony. We will look in the Torah and we'll see. That's what Hashem said. Hashem said, you follow my ways, things are good. You don't follow my ways, they're not so good. Now, according to Rabbenu the Rosh, one of the early Rishonim, he says that we fulfill the obligation to write a Sefer Torah, not just with the Torah scroll itself, but actually with books that contain words of Torah. We fulfill this obligation, and it's an obligation on each and every one of us. And he says we fulfill that by writing works, by owning works, and by fixing works, because there is it's not permitted to use a Sefer Torah if it has any errors in it. In fact, it could be that it is this very halacha that preserved the Hebrew language, that is so that it could be revived and spoken today. Because what happens? You have a Sefer Torah, you have a Torah scroll, you're reading it in the shul on Shabbos, and the Baal Koreh or somebody else who's looking in sees that there's either an extra letter or a missing letter or a letter that's misformed, or even two letters that are touching each other. That renders that Sefer Torah invalid, and you're not allowed to read from it until it's fixed. And according to the Rosh, this obligation would extend, at least in concept, even to books. If you have Sifrei Kodesh, you have holy books that have errors, it's an obligation to fix them. I'd like to point out, I have the great blessing of having many of the Svarim of the books of my grandfather, Ben Koenigsberg. And he was a serious Talmud Chacham, besides being a community activist and a practicing lawyer. And it almost without fail, I can tell which were his books, because he will take this happens to be an early printing of the Chafetz Chaim on the Torah. And I don't know if you can see this here, but on this column, this is the 5-page here, my grandfather noted each page on which he made a correction. In other words, he read the Sefer, he noticed that there was an error, he corrected the error, and then he listed the page on which the error is found in the opening of the Sefer. This would fulfill the concept of that a Sefer that is not proper, that is not kosher, should not be in circulation. So the only antidote to that is to correct it and to make it kosher. And we're talking about the interplay between Torah shebechsav, the written Torah, and Sima B'fihem, Torah shebal peh. There's another aspect of song, which is, in Western music, we have 12 notes. And we have millions of songs. And each song itself is performed in a different way. And if you listen to Talmidei Chachamim, to scholars of the Torah, each one has his own style. And they're all working from the same material, but they combine them in different ways. It's like watching an impresario. It's like watching, if you will, a master musician who has the basic structure of a song, and then he plays it in his own style. It's loyal to the original, but it's a different style. And that is also the aspect of song. We don't sing every song the exact same way. When it comes to nevuah, for example, to prophecy, ein shnei neviim misnabim b'signon echad. No two prophets prophesy in the same style. There is an interplay between that which is fixed, so much so that if there's a missing letter, it's rendered invalid. But yet, putting the pieces together and deriving lessons from that is the height of Torah creativity, much like either the composer of a song, the arranger of a song, or the performer of a song. And we have this balance between precision in the basic written form and creativity in terms of putting the pieces together to derive meaning from them. At the end, this is an aid, says the Torah. It's a testimony. What's the testimony? The testimony is, this is the lifeblood of the Jewish people. The Gemara says that things that are in writing, not supposed to just rattle off things that are in writing. You're supposed to read them from the source to make sure that they're accurate. On the other hand, it says but Torah Shebal Peh, which is the oral law, originally we were prohibited from writing it down. An individual who learned was allowed to write his own notes, but that was it. He had to keep it for himself. And people were gones, they used to bury their notes, etc. At the time of Rabbi Yehuda Hanassi, Rabbi Judah the Prince, who was one of the Tanoim, he saw that because of the oppressions of the nations of the world, specifically Rome, that the normal scholarship was being challenged, and he felt it was required to reduce to writing the oral tradition. So you have the written tradition and you have the oral tradition. You have write this down, vesima befihem, and put it in their mouths so that it will be a living Torah. Why might it be that it was prohibited to write down Torah Sheba'al Peh? Well, if you walk into any lawyer's office, or at least in the old days when they used to have libraries, there was a bunch of books in the background, and I don't believe there was any lawyer on the face of the earth who read them all. When did you read them? When you needed them. But otherwise, you didn't read every single case that was ever published. The Torah is different. The Torah had to be transmitted from generation to generation. It had to, in order to be transmitted, it had to be mastered. And that inevitably, if it was impossible or prohibited from writing it down, then the scholars of the generation and people who studied regularly had to commit the Torah to memory so that they would be positioned to pass it on to the next generation. That's been diluted a bit, but we still have the passing on of the Torah from generation to generation. And despite the creativity, we also want to make sure that we have the precision and we make sure that there are no errors. And if there are errors, we correct them. And this is all so that the Torah remains a testimony, not just to how the Jews should act, but how even when God hides his face, we have the written record that he is with us at all times. Have a good Shabbos.